What happens when one of Hollywood's most outspoken actors faces a host known for his aggressive questioning? You're about to find out, and trust me, it gets intense fast. Don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment because this story is going to blow your mind. That morning, Samuel L. Jackson walked into the Good Morning America studio, expecting a routine promotional interview for his latest film. A legendary presence both on and off screen, he'd done hundreds of interviews over his decades-long career. But he hadn't anticipated George Stephanopoulos in one of his most confrontational moods. Even before the cameras rolled, tension crackled backstage. Jackson overheard Stephanopoulos telling producers he wanted to dig deeper than the usual fluff. "I'm tired of these softball interviews," he said, his voice carrying the edge his colleagues recognized as trouble brewing. When Jackson took his seat, the studio felt different. Pre-show chit-chat was clipped and perfunctory. Stephanopoulos barely looked up from his notes as he adjusted his tie and checked his earpiece. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, bracing for what they expected to be a standard entertainment segment. "We're live in 30 seconds. The floor director announced. Then Stephanopoulos made eye contact with Jackson, cold, calculated. This was not the friendly chat Jackson had anticipated. "Good morning. I'm George Stephanopoulos, and we're here with Samuel L. Jackson," the host began, his professional smile not quite reaching his eyes. "Good morning, George," Jackson replied, settling back with that trademark confidence that had defined his screen presence. "Happy to be here." But Stephanopoulos wasn't interested in pleasantries. Almost immediately, he went on the offensive. "Samuel, before we talk about your movie, I want to address your recent comments about the film industry. You've been vocal about certain issues, and some are questioning whether you're the right person to make these statements." Jackson raised an eyebrow. This wasn't what he'd discussed with producers. "I'm sorry. What exactly are you referring to, George?" "You've made strong accusations about fairness and representation in Hollywood. Yet, looking at your career, you've benefited from the very system you criticize. Isn't that hypocritical?" The studio fell silent except for the hum of the cameras. Jackson leaned forward, calm but sharp. "George, I think you might want to clarify that," he said, "because it sounds like you're suggesting I don't have the right to speak about what I've experienced firsthand." Stephanopoulos pressed on, seemingly unaware of the line he was crossing. "I'm just saying that for someone who's made millions, complaining about the industry seems rich. You've been in some of the biggest blockbusters. How exactly have you been disadvantaged?" Jackson's voice dropped to that measured, intimidating tone audiences had seen on screen countless times. "Are you seriously telling me that because I've been successful, I should stay silent about the problems I've seen? That because I've made money, racism doesn't exist?" Shifting uncomfortably, Stephanopoulos doubled down. "I'm not saying racism doesn't exist, Samuel. I'm saying maybe someone in your position isn't the best spokesperson. Perhaps someone who hasn't benefited as much would have more credibility." Jackson's jaw tightened. The cameras captured every micro-expression as his intensity built. "More credibility, George? Let me explain something. Success doesn't erase years of being typecast, being told I'm too this or too that, watching less talented actors get roles because they fit a certain look. Success doesn't make discrimination disappear. It just gives you a platform to speak out." But Stephanopoulos kept pushing. "Don't you think your success story contradicts your narrative? Here you are, one of the highest-grossing actors ever, promoting another blockbuster. Where's the systemic oppression in that?" The question hung in the air like a gauntlet. Jackson stared at him for a long, tense moment, and viewers could feel the room's temperature drop. When he spoke, his quiet authority left no room for debate. "George, I'm giving you one chance to rethink this conversation. Right now you sound like someone who's never had to fight for anything in your life. You want to talk about my success?" Jackson's voice cut through the studio like a knife. "Let's talk about the first 20 years of my career, working twice as hard for half the recognition. Let's talk about scripts filled with nothing but stereotypes. Let's talk about meetings where I was told I was too intimidating, too urban, too whatever code word they were using that week." Stephanopoulos leaned back, a smirk in place, his tone still sharp. "But that's ancient history, isn't it? You've starred in some of the most prestigious films of the last 2 decades. Marvel movies, Tarantino films, major studio productions. Isn't that progress?" Jackson's voice rose just enough to shift the air in the studio. "George, do you know how many times I've been the only black actor on a big-budget set? How many times I've walked onto a set where they assumed I was delivering lunch instead of lines? Progress isn't one person breaking through barriers, it's tearing those barriers down for everyone. Stephanopoulos sensed the room tightening but pushed harder. Samuel, with all due respect, it sounds like you're looking for problems where they don't exist anymore. Maybe some people just don't want to admit things have improved. That was the moment everything changed. Jackson's eyes flashed, a quiet storm of the intensity that had made him a screen legend. His voice dropped, deadly calm. "George, I need you to be very careful with your next words," he said. "You're about to cross a line you don't want to cross." Stephanopoulos either didn't hear the warning or chose to ignore it. "Samuel, I think this is exactly what I mean," he said, his condescending smile drawing nervous glances from the crew. "When someone asks you tough questions, you resort to intimidation tactics. Isn't that exactly what gives your critics ammunition?" Jackson stayed perfectly still, letting the words hang in the studio's silence. When he spoke, every syllable carried that measured, dangerous weight audiences knew so well. "Intimidation tactics?" he repeated slowly. "Let me be crystal clear. Me telling you that you're about to cross a line isn't intimidation, it's courtesy. It's a chance to remember you're supposed to be a professional journalist, not some tabloid hack chasing a gotcha moment." Stephanopoulos flushed but pressed on. "I'm asking legitimate questions about your public statements. If you can't handle scrutiny, maybe you shouldn't make those statements." Jackson's laugh was sharp and humorless. "Handle scrutiny?" "George, I've been handling scrutiny since before you knew what a teleprompter was. There's a difference between legitimate questions and what you're doing. Delegitimizing my experiences because they don't fit your comfortable narrative." Leaning forward, Stephanopoulos tried to capitalize. "Your experiences or your agenda. It looks like you're using your platform to push a political viewpoint. And when someone challenges that, you get defensive. That was it." Jackson's composure cracked, just enough for viewers to catch the flash of real anger. "Political viewpoint, George? Equality isn't a political viewpoint, it's a human right. Something you clearly wouldn't understand. Sitting in your ivory tower, never worrying whether a job came from talent or fitting someone's idea of what a person in your position should look like." Stephanopoulos bristled. "Hold on, I've worked hard to get where I am. I don't appreciate the implication that I haven't earned my position." Jackson's voice dripped with controlled sarcasm. "Oh, you don't appreciate it? Imagine how I feel when you imply that decades of discrimination don't matter. Because I eventually found success. I'm not questioning your right to your job. I'm questioning your competence to do it." The tension was palpable. Camera operators zoomed in. Producers whispered frantically. This wasn't a standard interview anymore, it was a showdown. "I've been doing this job for decades," Stephanopoulos said, voice rising, cracks in his professionalism showing. "I've interviewed presidents, world leaders, Nobel laureates. I know how to conduct an interview." Jackson shook his head slowly, a bitter smile forming. "George, interviewing presidents doesn't make you presidential. Right now, you're acting like someone who's never been told no in his life, throwing a tantrum because your guest won't play along with your ambush." "Ambush?" Stephanopoulos shot back. "This is journalism. Public figures make controversial statements, they get asked about them. If you can't handle that, maybe stick to reading scripts instead of writing op-eds." The insult hung in the air like a slap. Jackson's eyes narrowed, his voice now the controlled fury that had made him one of the most compelling actors of his generation. "Did you just tell me to stick to reading scripts?" Jackson's voice was low, almost a whisper, but the studio leaned in to catch it. "Did you really try to put me in my place like some performing monkey who should be grateful for the scraps you throw him?" Stephanopoulos froze, realizing he'd gone too far, but pride kept him from retreating. "That's not what I said. I'm just suggesting that maybe entertainment figures should focus on entertainment instead of trying to be political commentators." "Entertainment figures?" Jackson's voice grew louder, rage simmering beneath every word. "George, I'm not just an entertainment figure. I'm a citizen. I'm a taxpayer. I'm a human being with eyes, a brain, and 5 decades of life experience. And you want to reduce me to just an entertainer because it's easier to dismiss what I'm saying if you convince people I don't have the right to say it." Beads of sweat formed on Stephanopoulos's forehead despite the studio's air conditioning. "Samuel, I think you're reading things into this conversation." "Honest?" Jackson interrupted, laughing, but there was no humor in it. "George, there's nothing honest about what you're doing. You came in with one goal: make me look like an angry black man who doesn't know his place. Congratulations, you got half of it right." "I am angry, but not for the reasons you think." Stephanopoulos leaned forward, trying to regain control. Let's focus on your new film. No, George, Jackson cut him off sharply. Let's not change the subject. You wanted this conversation, so we're having it. You want to know what makes me angry? Sitting across from someone who's never had to fight for respect, never had to prove himself beyond the accident of birth, trying to lecture me on how I should respond to discrimination. That's privilege. That's the confidence to tell someone their lived experiences don't matter. The studio fell silent, not in anticipation but in shock. Stephanopoulos opened his mouth, but Jackson held up a hand. I'm not finished, he said, voice commanding attention. You asked if I'm the right person to speak on these issues. Let me ask you, George, what makes you the right person to tell me I'm not? The question landed like a punch. Stephanopoulos sank back in his chair, finally realizing he was out of his depth. Jackson wasn't done. I think you're mischaracterizing, Stephanopoulos began, voice shaky. My viewers? Jackson interrupted, cutting through him. George, your viewers tuned in to hear about a movie, not to watch you humiliate a guest for your ego. And if you want to know what they really want, they want to know why a supposedly professional journalist thinks it's okay to ambush someone who came in good faith. That's not journalism. That's bad television. Stephanopoulos made one last attempt. Samuel, maybe if you answered the questions instead of attacking me personally. Jackson stood so fast his chair tumbled backward. The sudden movement sent the studio staff flinching. He loomed over the host, eyes blazing. Overly sensitive? Jackson's voice filled the room. George, you've spent the last 10 minutes telling me my life experiences don't matter, that my success invalidates my right to speak about injustice, and that I should just shut up and be grateful. And when I respond like a human being, you call me overly sensitive. Stephanopoulos shrank back, finally understanding the magnitude of his miscalculation. Samuel, please sit down. Let's try to have a civil conversation. Civil? Jackson's laugh was harsh, bitter. You want to talk about civil? George, there was nothing civil about your approach the moment I sat down. You came in with preconceived notions and a script designed to make me look bad. And now that it's backfiring, you hide behind calls for civility. Stephanopoulos tried again, voice strained. I was just challenging your positions, giving you a chance to defend your statements. Isn't that what good journalism does? Jackson leaned forward, hands planted on the desk, voice dropping to that dangerous whisper that had made him famous. George, let me explain something about challenging positions. When you challenge someone, you engage with their arguments. You present counter-evidence. You ask questions that make them think deeper. What you don't do is attack their right to hold those positions in the first place. Silence hit the room like a hammer. Stephanopoulos froze, crew members looking anywhere but at the two men. Jackson straightened, adjusting his jacket deliberately. You know the real tragedy here, George. You had one of the most respected actors in Hollywood sitting across from you. Decades of stories, insights, experiences your viewers would have found fascinating. Instead, you turned this into a gotcha moment for your own gratification. Stephanopoulos croaked. Samuel, maybe we can start over. Talk about your film like we planned. Jackson's eyebrows shot up. George, you can't unring a bell. You can't spend 15 minutes disrespecting someone and then ask for a do-over when it doesn't go your way. That's not respect. That's not professionalism. One last plea. Please, Samuel, let's salvage this interview. I'm sure we can find some common ground. Jackson shook his head, disappointment etched on his face. Common ground, George? The only common ground we have is that we're sitting in this studio, and frankly, I'm about to change that. Stephanopoulos' eyes widened. Wait, you can't just leave. We're live. Watch me, Jackson replied, voice final as a judge's gavel. See, that's the beautiful thing about being Samuel L. Jackson. I don't have to sit here and let someone disrespect me for morning TV entertainment. I have enough self-respect to walk away from people who can't treat others with basic human dignity. The host's professional mask cracked, panic showing. Samuel, please think, this will be everywhere. Is this how you want to be remembered? Jackson paused at the edge of the set, turning back once more. George, I've been in this business long enough to know that how I'm remembered depends on who tells the story. And when people see this footage, they're going to remember the host who thought he could bully Samuel L. Jackson, and learned the hard way that some people don't play those games. With that, Jackson walked off, leaving Stephanopoulos alone at the desk, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Cameras rolled for several more seconds, capturing the stunned host. We'll be right back after this commercial break, Stephanopoulos finally whispered, voice trembling. Everyone watching knew Samuel L. Jackson would be long gone, and Stephanopoulos would have to explain to producers, his network, and viewers exactly how he had destroyed what should have been a routine promotional interview. The studio descended into chaos. Producers rushed onto the set, crew members froze in disbelief, and Stephanopoulos sat at the desk, staring at the empty chair, finally grasping the full weight of his professional miscalculation.